I'd like to read to you today from Philippians chapter 1, verses 18 through 20. What is the result? Only that in every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is being proclaimed. And in this I rejoice. Yes, and I will continue to rejoice, for I know that this will turn out for my deliverance through your prayers and the help of the Spirit of Jesus Christ. So right here, Paul is in prison, and his circumstance is of the sort that on the outside looking in, he has a lot of reasons to complain, a lot of reasons to be bitter, a lot of reasons to really look at God and question him and as to why. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this to me now? Why is it so hard to do what you have asked me to do? And the wisdom in Paul's verses here is what really is the centerpiece for our lesson today in our Restore acronym, which is O, that stands for other-centeredness. See, Paul's action here and his ambition sets the tone really for the rest of this chapter 1. But I want to look at verse 18, the second part of it. In this I rejoice. Christ is being proclaimed, and in this I rejoice. He's not talking about his circumstance. He's talking about the outcome. He's not talking about what went wrong. He's talking about what God has put him there to make right. See, how do we rejoice in tragedy when the world around us seems to crumble? When everything is just so hard, how do we rejoice in those moments? You read between the cracks. You read between those cracks and you look for the purpose in that pain. Now, that's easier said than done sometimes, isn't it? You look for the purpose behind that pain. And how do you read something hard to see between the cracks? If you got a little space and you're trying to look through it, how do you see? When it is so hard to look beyond, it's not just a passing glance. You get down in there and you peer, you gaze deeply, you gaze intently. You have to concentrate, you have to focus, you have to look beyond what is in front of you to get to what is beyond you. In hardship or tragedy such as Paul's or our own, we can look hard for the purpose, but we will only see it when he shows us, and he won't show us unless we ask him. If you want to sit around and feel bad for yourself, if you want to sit around and have a pity party, you're never going to go forward because you're always going to be stuck right there on the other side of that wall with everything that God has for you just beyond it. And he goes on in verse 18, and I will continue to rejoice. It doesn't matter what happened to me. It only matters what is happening to me right now and where God has put me. He continues to rejoice because he knows why he rejoices. Whether it is deliverance from this life or whether it is deliverance from these prison walls, it only happens through the power of Christ. So whether we are delivered from our circumstance in that deep, dark hole we are in, or whether we are taken out of this life and brought to happen, it only happens through Christ. The path to the help of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, as he says in verse 19, is through prayer. Prayer, and not only his, but the Philippian church. This is why it is important for a community of prayer, why it is important not only to pray for ourselves, but to pray for our church, to pray for our family, to pray for our friends, because they depend on it just like we depend on it. And he says in verse 19, and I know that this will turn out for my deliverance through your prayers and the help of the Spirit of Jesus Christ. And there he says it. Everything in the Bible, I believe, rests on this fact. This is why he urges them to keep praying later on in his book to the Philippians. He says in chapter 4, verse 6, do not be anxious about anything. Instead, in every situation, through prayer and petition with thanksgiving, tell your requests to God. Start praying instead of pouting. Start praising instead of protesting. You want to sit there and feel bad for yourself? You go ahead. But when you turn that pity into prayer, when you turn that protest into praise, God wants to do mighty things with that. And when your prayer is more than your despair, you won't worry about the how you're going to get out of this. You will only worry about the who is going to deliver you. You say it again. When your prayer is more than your despair, you won't worry about the how because you know the who.